One of them is lying to you, but which one? It's hard to know which one of them are lying. And whether you know it or not, someone in your life is always lying to win your trust, to steal your time, to pull your emotions like strings on a puppet. But the most dangerous liars? They look exactly like the people in these clips. Normal people like you and I. Because deception is everywhere. And if we're all vulnerable, what exactly makes a lie so believable? Deception works because we're wired for trust. From the moment we're born, we rely on others to survive. Food, safety, comfort, all from the hands of people we believed wouldn't hurt us, and that instinct never goes away. When someone mirrors our words, our body language, our emotions, we feel a connection. This is called trust bias. We believe people who reflect us back at ourselves. It's why we open up to strangers who share our sense of humor. Why we trust people who come from the same background, speak the same slang, or like the same music. Our brain says, "This person feels like me. They must be safe." But that familiarity, it can be completely fake, carefully crafted to deceive us. Then comes the power of appearance. A uniform, a title, a credential. This authority bias is where we give trust to symbols of power, often without question. It's the reason why we follow orders from someone in a suit, believe an email because it looks official, or fall for a scam just because it sounds like it came from the bank. Our brain shortcuts the process. It says, if they have power, they must be telling the truth. But power and truth are not the same thing. And finally, the most dangerous trap of all, empathy. When someone shares a story of love, struggle, or genius, we want it to be true. We want to root for the underdog, to believe in the fairy tale. That's the empathy trap. It's what makes us cheer for the charming rebel, donate to the person claiming they've hit rock bottom, or fall in love with the perfect stranger who says all the right things. These instincts make us human, but they also make us vulnerable. Because con artists don't create trust. They borrow it from the stories, symbols, and emotions we already believe in. They mirror what we want to see, wear the titles we respect, tell the stories we crave, and we open the door without realizing it. But even when the cracks start to show, even when the story feels wrong or the facts don't add up, we hesitate to face the truth. Because facing the truth means admitting we were fooled, and our pride hates that more than any lie. And when those lies were the face of charm, love, or status, how do you tell what's real? He posed as a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, before he was even old enough to vote.
So I decided to advance my age. I always looked a little older, so I started saying I was 26 years old.
Frank Abagnale Jr. wasn't stealing out of desperation. He was chasing a feeling, the thrill of being someone important. And he got away with it for years, because people wanted to believe him. At first, it started small, a fake ID here, a forged check there.
So I got into the habit of starting to write personal checks without having any money in the bank.
But the deeper Frank went, the more convincing he became. His false identities were more than just costumes. They were characters he studied, memorized, and became. He used psychological leverage with surgical precision. Airline staff trusted him because he wore their uniform.
I saw this airline crew come out of a hotel, and I thought that would be the perfect front for me to be able to travel around the country posing as a pilot.
Bank tellers handed him cash because his checks looked official.
You know, Abagnale, you're the only guy I know walks into a bank in the middle of New York. You have no account there. You don't know a soul. You walk over and talk to somebody at a desk, and they okay your check.
Nurses let him walk into operating rooms because he sounded confident.
So I would say, well, Dr. Carter, what do you think? Well, doctor, I would like to administer 30 cc's of this. Dr. John, I concur. Dr. Jane, I concur. Gentlemen, have at it.
He didn't need to be brilliant. He just needed to mirror belief back at people, and that made them let their guard down. At the height of his deception, Frank didn't panic. He was euphoric. He felt unstoppable. His emotional state was fueled by adrenaline, not fear. Each successful con validated his belief that he was special, chosen, above the rules. His self-perception was wildly inflated. He didn't see himself as a criminal. He saw himself as clever, even admirable.
Went on work as a corporate lawyer on the Attorney General's staff, and worked there for almost a year.
Someone who outsmarted broken systems. He once said, "I was just playing the game better than they were." And to him, that made it okay. Frank's worldview was simple. Trust was a weakness, and lies were just tools. He believed if people were careless enough to fall for him, then they deserved the consequences. That warped logic let him justify everything, even when it destroyed lives. His thought patterns were fast, improvisational, and slippery, always one step ahead. When his lies began to unravel, he didn't stop. He just shifted tactics, changed accents, changed names, changed cities. His brain never slowed down because slowing down meant facing what he really was, a scared kid trying to outrun himself. And his behavior reflected that chaos. He never stayed long, never told the same story twice. His life became a series of scenes, each more extreme than the last. But the more convincing he became, the less real he felt. What he left behind was a true psychological wake. Victims questioning their own judgment. Innocent people blaming themselves. Frank's lies fooled thousands of people for years and left such a lasting impression that their ability to trust and rely on others was undoubtedly impacted forever. Frank Abagnale Jr. proved that charm is the perfect disguise. He didn't need to steal anything with force. He made you hand it over with a smile. But what happens when the con isn't about survival, but about love? He didn't steal wallets. He stole hearts. And emptied bank accounts before anyone realized what hit them. Simon Leviev wasn't the billionaire he appeared to be. He just played one on the internet. And that image, carefully crafted, beautifully packaged, was enough to make strangers fall in love with a man who never truly existed. And what made him truly dangerous was how he made his victims feel safe.
We were talking and calling and texting. When he's out to dinner, he sends me a picture, and we use voice notes.
Beautiful, looking beautiful, vanilla.
Simon's false identity was layered and precise. He wasn't just posing as a wealthy businessman. He had a full cast of supporting characters, fake assistants, bodyguards, business partners, all in on the act. Every social media post, every luxury photo, every press article had one goal: to build a world where he looked untouchable. People didn't fall for Simon Leviev the man. They fell for the empire he pretended to own. And then came the emotional leverage. Before asking for money, Simon sold a fantasy. He bombarded his victims with affection, daily calls, sweet messages, surprise trips on private jets. The psychological term is love bombing, overwhelming someone with affection so they lower their guard. He made his victims feel like soulmates, and when the trust was secure, that's when the story changed. Suddenly, Simon was in danger. Enemies were after him. His accounts were frozen. His life, and by extension yours, was under threat, and the only person who could save him was you.
Because of the situation, the security and everything, they told me I'm not allowed to use my credit card.
His emotional state was ice cold beneath the charm. He didn't panic. He didn't beg. He applied pressure with calculated calmness. This was someone who rehearsed every plea, every threat, and every apology, until it felt like second nature. His self-perception was equally warped. Simon didn't see himself as a liar. He saw himself as a king, someone entitled to luxury, to wealth, to admiration. In his mind, the world owed him this lifestyle, and if someone had to pay for it, so be it. His worldview was transactional. Love wasn't about connection, it was about currency. People weren't partners, they were ATMs with feelings. He believed everyone could be bought, manipulated, and eventually replaced. And these thought patterns were scripted and circular. He rotated victims like chess pieces. When one woman maxed out her cards, he moved to the next, using her money to fund the same seduction strategy all over again. It was a never-ending Ponzi scheme of emotion and debt. And his behavior reflected this cruelty.
I love you and I care about you. I ask 1,000 times. I ask nicely. I'm speaking to you nicely. I'm trying to respect you, but you not seem like with me.
He maintained multiple relationships at once, keeping his lies airtight through constant contact. If someone questioned him, he flipped the narrative, blaming them for doubting his loyalty, guilt-tripping them until they gave in.
They weren't conned and they weren't threatened.
But the most devastating part of all was the emotional wreckage he left behind. Countless women who thought they'd found the love of their life.
Ross me in and then just give me this kiss, and I was like, oh shit, the kind of butterflies.
Left ashamed, broken, and alone. Simon Leviev shattered their trust, took advantage of their vulnerability, and destroyed their belief in love itself. But what happens when deception isn't used to steal money, but to steal status, power, and identity? She walked into New York's most exclusive circles like she belonged there. Art collectors, CEOs, fashion icons, all drawn to a mysterious German heiress who promised to build the next great cultural empire. But Anna Sorokin wasn't an heiress. She wasn't even rich. She was a broke 20-something with nothing but a fake accent, a stolen wardrobe, and a hunger for recognition. She didn't fake wealth to escape poverty. She faked it to outrank royalty. Her life was a house of cards. But for years, no one saw it fall. Anna's false identity was carefully curated. She became Anna Delvey, the confident, slightly aloof European socialite. Her Instagram was filled with luxury getaways and designer clothes. She dropped references to European royalty, global investments, and secretive family trusts. But what truly sold the lie was how she played the part. Instead of begging her way into high society, Anna acted like she was already at the top.
I don't care what you think of me. I don't need your approval. I don't need to impress you.
And people believed her, because no one questions someone who walks into the room like they own it. Then came her psychological leverage. Anna won people over with exclusivity as opposed to things like charm and kindness. She made her victims feel like they were lucky to be a part of her vision. It didn't matter if they were investors, hoteliers, or socialites. By giving Anna money, they were getting access to an empire, or at least, so they thought.
It wasn't like, all expenses paid vacation to Morocco, like a pop-up window. I think I would have looked at that differently. It was one thing, and then another thing, until all of a sudden, surprise, I'm holding the bag.
Because underneath that icy confidence that Anna wore was something more fragile. Her emotional state was restless and craving. She wasn't cold like Simon Leviev or euphoric like Frank Abagnale. She was chasing something she never had. Belonging. Every room she entered was a test. Could she finally be enough? Her self-perception was both grand and defensive. She saw herself as a visionary, a misunderstood genius surrounded by idiots who didn't recognize her brilliance. Even when the walls closed in, she acted like the world was catching up to her greatness, not exposing her lies. And her worldview? That was ruthless. Life was about power and perception. If you looked rich, you were rich. If you acted important, you were important. And anyone who questioned you was just jealous, small-minded, or beneath your level. Her thought patterns lived in denial. Every bounced check wasn't a crime, it was temporary. Every unpaid hotel bill wasn't theft, it was a delay. She built her lies so tall that admitting the truth would collapse the entire tower. So she didn't. She just kept climbing. Her behavior was also extremely resistant. With the truth catching up to her, she doubled down instead of apologizing. She stayed in luxury hotels without paying, went on personal shopping sprees with other people's credit cards. She walked out on bills claiming her trust fund would cover it soon. But her deception left a trail of carnage behind. Friends were buried in debt. Hotels and restaurants defrauded. Credibility in New York's social scene was flipped upside down. It wasn't just about stolen money. It was about the reputations that had been ruined. Anna made fools out of powerful people whose image and status meant everything to them. And yet, even after her arrest, her trial, and her Netflix series, Anna Sorokin never admitted she was a fraud.
I don't see myself as such.
You don't think you've conned anybody?
No.
In interviews, she still hints that the people who doubted her were small thinkers.
I have no patience for people's stupidity.
That if things had gone differently, maybe the Anna Delvey Foundation would have been real and successful. In the end, Anna Sorokin wasn't chasing wealth. He was chasing the feeling of being untouchable. And for the briefest moment in time, she almost was. You've already trusted me for 20 minutes. Just think about that. 3 liars, 3 different worlds, all of them pulling the same psychological strings. These con artists masterfully exploited trust, authority, and fantasy for their own personal gain. At the start of the video, I asked you which of these individuals were lying. The reality is that I was the one lying. They were both being honest. You've already trusted me for 20 minutes. But how do you know I've told the truth about everything else? Think about that. And with that lesson in mind, it's easy to say that we're guilty of being gullible in the face of deception. But the truth is that we're only guilty of being human. Because deception thrives on the stories we want to believe. So when Frank sold adventure, Simon sold love, and Anna sold power, they weren't forcing their way through the door. It was already open. All they needed to do was wear the right smile, say the right words, and wait for the invite. So the next time someone makes you feel special, powerful, or loved, ask yourself one thing. Are they really opening a door for you? Or are they halfway through the one you left wide open? Thanks for watching.